Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating question. How does societies create a space for public debate? And what if the model we've inherited is, well, just all wrong? We're going to put two powerful ideas head-to-head, the intellectual coffeehouse of 18th century Europe versus the radical, action-oriented ashram of Mahatma Gandhi. So here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll get a handle on what a public sphere even is, and then we'll look at that classic European model, which, believe me, still shapes how we think today. And from there, we'll jump over to India to see how Gandhi turned that whole idea on its head, building something totally new and radically inclusive.
All right, so first things first. What exactly are we even talking about when we say the public sphere?
You can think of it as the big arena where public opinion gets hammered out. It's not the government, and it's not your private life at home. It's that crucial in-between space. Clubs, newspapers, social groups, where people hash out the big issues of the day. And the person who really put this idea on the map was the philosopher Jürgen Habermas.
Now, Habermas didn't just pull this out of thin air. He based his whole model on the buzzing social life of 18th century Europe. But as you're about to see, this public sphere is built around a very specific kind of place. And frankly, a very specific kind of person.
Yeah, just look at who this space was actually for. It was basically an exclusive club for educated, property-owning men. The whole ideal was pure rational debate. And that meant your private life, your emotions, your identity, all of that stuff, it had to be left at the door. You were supposed to walk in as just a rational mind, not a whole person.
And this idea of a calm, rational space, well, it had a flip side. A real fear of the alternative. Habermas was pretty worried about opening the sphere up to, everybody. He thought that mass democracy, with all its messy emotions and what he called the pressure of the streets, would just destroy reasoned debate and lead to chaos. Okay, now let's switch gears and journey across the world. Because while this exclusive ideal was taking root in Europe, a young lawyer in South Africa, and later India, was busy creating a completely different kind of public sphere, one that was built precisely for the street.
Right from the start, Gandhi was all about creating organizations. But these were not your typical debating societies. No way. The Natal Indian Congress, it gave a political voice to immigrants who had none. And his settlements, Phoenix and Tolstoy Farm, they were living, breathing experiments. Communities designed specifically for political action.
And this quote right here, it gets to the absolute core of his mission. He wasn't interested in just swapping out British rulers for Indian rulers while keeping the same old broken system. For Gandhi, real Swaraj, or self-rule, meant changing the entire nature of power and public life itself.
The ashram, then, was the total opposite of the exclusive coffeehouse. It was built to be radically inclusive. You had people from every caste, every religion, every class, all living and working side by side. This created a public sphere that could actually work for everyone, especially for a population where most people couldn't read or write.
So, you have to ask, how on earth did Gandhi make this work? How did he pull off this radical inclusivity? Well, he did it by taking a sledgehammer to the very wall that the coffee house model was built on, that strict line between our private lives and our public principles.
This story from Champaran is just the perfect example. You've got these wealthy, high-caste lawyers who show up to help the cause, but they bring their servants with them, expecting to keep all their private comforts and privileges. Gandhi basically told them, nope, that's not how we do things here. You simply can't fight for public equality if you're practicing private inequality. For him, the personal was always political. And this table, wow, it just lays the contrast completely bare. Look at the participants. Educated elite versus, everyone. The method? It shifts from just talking to doing to exemplary action and even self-suffering. The location moves from fancy urban clubs to rural villages and protest marches. And the whole goal changes. It's no longer about finding some universal truth through pure reason, but about discovering a shared, situational truth that involves both the heart and the mind. Satyagraha was Gandhi's signature tool for this new public. And it's so much more than just protest. It was a way to force a conversation through action. By willingly accepting punishment and suffering, the activists, the Satyagrahis, hoped to open the hearts of their opponents, to make them see the situation from a totally different point of view.
And right here, Gandhi is basically throwing down a direct challenge to that coffeehouse model. He's arguing that reason alone, it's just not enough. To really change people's minds and resolve deep-seated conflicts, you have to reach their hearts. And the most powerful way to do that, he believed, wasn't through violence, but by showing your moral courage through self-suffering.
This is a harrowing account from the Salt March, and it shows you the unbelievable courage this philosophy demanded. The disciplined non-violence of the protesters, even as they faced these brutal attacks, created this powerful kind of political theater that was broadcast all over the world. They didn't win by fighting back. They won by exposing the moral bankruptcy of the violence being used against them, and that challenged the very legitimacy of British rule.
So where does all this leave us? When we put these two powerful ideas side by side, what's the big takeaway from Gandhi's alternative vision for how a public can actually create change?
I think it comes down to a fundamental shift in the whole point of the exercise. The coffeehouse model was all about proving an argument was right through logic. But the ashram model? It was about transforming the people who were in the argument, on both sides, through moral action and shared experience.
And this, right here, is the true genius of it. Gandhi democratized the very idea of a public. He literally invented a way for people to participate in politics that didn't require them to be literate or wealthy. Through things like marches, symbols like homespun cloth, and the shared discipline of the community, he gave millions of people the power to become political actors for the very first time.
Which leaves us with a pretty challenging question for our own time. In an age of social media, filter bubbles, and so much digital outrage, what can we learn from a public sphere that wasn't built on being right, but on the much harder, more transformative work of empathy? It's a question that shows just how incredibly relevant Gandhi's vision still is today.